The Greeks have a very different opinion about the world. They think that one man alone can change the world. That's how we believe. So every Greek thinks that I'm the guy. I'm going to change the world, right? Of course, nobody. Well, some did. Alexander the Great, for example, changed the world, right? One guy, right? Changed the world. Jesus, he's not Greek, but still, one guy changed the world, right? I mean, I don't know. If you look, there's some individuals who are very good, but the Chinese don't think that. The Chinese think that together we change the world, right? Yeah. But we think alone. It's the opposite, but again, it's a philosophical argument, and I think it works in both ways. I mean, who says that somehow somebody alone in the perfect circumstances could change the world, significantly, because he had an idea that nobody had before. Plato, right? Plato's one guy. He changed the world. I mean, Socrates, one guy, right? He just had some crazy ideas, but his crazy ideas became somehow through Plato and through the philosophers, he became like the Western pivot of philosophy, right? That's a different.
And your university in Greece is called Aristotle.
Aristotle, yeah, that
University.
Because Aristotle was a philosopher who is from that area. Actually, his village is 60 kilometers from, I don't know how much, in the way to, in close to Thessaloniki. So he's considered a North Greece philosopher. But he was very successful philosopher because he was actually the student of Plato. Mm-hmm. Plato had a student who was Aristotle, and Aristotle was a student of Plato who was always against the teacher. He was always arguing against Plato. Plato was very idealistic, and Aristotle was very practical, right? And he was the teacher. Aristotle became the teacher of Alexander the Great. So when Alexander the Great conquered the world, back then, he brought all the information back to Aristotle, who actually processed all the information, and he wrote all these books about everything, which is where Aristotle became very important because he's a practical philosopher. He says, like, we do this based on this information, blah, blah. He's very practical. But Plato is very idealistic, like, it's all in the sky, and it's all about ideas.
And the question about everything.
Yeah, he's questioning. Aristotle doesn't question. He just does things. So he's like much more close to Chinese philosophy. Yeah, so that's why. So my university was after, but it has nothing to do. The university has doesn't adopt it's just the name that it uses. I mean, Aristotelian is basically a collection of information from the world. That's what Aristotelian philosophy is. But that's just the name that it has. Yeah. But I'm more impressed with Tao philosophy and religion and the difference between East and West. So anyway, so we have many arguments, so that's why we wrote the book. It's not really about kids, it's about AI and the philosophical side of AI. So what we were looking into was this juxtaposition, this contrast between the Eastern philosophies and the Western philosophies. So I have a lot of background in philosophical, because I'm Greek, and we all talk about the philosophers and what they said and all these ideas. And then when I came to China, I found out that you have similar ideas, sometimes similar, sometimes opposite, but they're very important. So I thought, why don't we, and then I was looking into AI, and AI is, again, not, from my point of view, is not a technical thing. It's more of a philosophical argument. It's about objects, things in the world that have intelligence. And that's a philosophical argument because it's things, it's about intelligence. So a lot of philosophies start working to explain the phenomenon. Like, for example, intention, mistakes, artifacts, all these things are part of that. So if you put them into a book, you can put all these things together. So some of these theories that happened in the past happen again now, but in a different form. So there is the modernization of the old stories. Okay, so it happened like years ago. Something happened that happens again now, but in a different format. So, for example, I'll give you some. The Chinese philosophy and the Greek philosophy are full of creatures, strange creatures. The dragon, for example. What is the dragon? The dragon is just this animal, right? And it has this shape, right? But it's also a symbol of China. Why? why is it that the dragon is so important for the Chinese culture, right? And it's the representation. Is it because it looks like a snake? It's not a snake, really. Is it a lizard? It's not a lizard either. It has like flames from the mouth. Not always. There's something about the dragon that is very important. Oh no, the dragon, in a way, is a creature that is smart. It's bold. It's dangerous if you do things against it, right? It represents the Chinese culture. But why? That's the question. Why is it that the dragon, what exactly is that the dragon has that is so important for the Chinese culture? And the answer to that comes from the West, from us, from the Greeks. So the Greeks also know about the dragon, but the dragon in China, in Greece, is not an animal. It's a human. A dragon is a person.
Really?
Yeah, let me tell you. So dragon is a Greek word. Drakos means Greek. I mean, you have a different word, long. In Chinese, the symbol is long. But you use the word dragon. But there's a reason why you use the word dragon, because the dragon has something about the word itself. The word itself, dragon in Greek, means sharp vision. It means that which can see far away. That's what the word dragon means. So a drakos, a dragon in Greece, is a person who can see far away. Not necessarily good vision, but he can see vision. He can predict the future. He can make the future safe. So the dragon represents a concept of vision. So that's why the dragon is important, not because it's an animal. It's because you can see far away. That's why when you take the eye of the dragon, remember there is a story in Chinese philosophy about the no eye in the doctor. Right? The eye is very important for the dragon because it's the vision. It's not the shape. It's not the intimidating you with the shape of it. It's the fact that it can see far away. And think about it. The Chinese are the only ones who can see far away, right? This is the culture that sees the future, makes visions, makes projections about the future. That's where the dragon comes in, right?
But in China, that dragon means the positive things. But in the Western culture, especially in the United States or other cultures, they say the dragon is the demon, the monster.
Yeah. But that's a different dragon. That's coming again from the Greek word for dragon.
All from the Greek. The positive and negative thing is
The
also
reason,
from the Greek.
no. That's nothing to do with the dragon. It has to do. No, it's not the dragon. It's the snake. The snake is the problem because the snake in the Greek. Well, whatever, in the Christian philosophy, is this deceptive animal who tries to deceive Eve in the garden, tries to give the apple and blah, 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 right? And always the devil is represented with the snake because the snake goes underground. Underground is dark, and that's where the other world is, right? So that's why. So it's nothing to do with the dragon. It's not the dragon. It's the snake. But the snake sometimes looks like a dragon, especially when you have certain iconography, like St. George, for example, is killing the dragon. It's not a dragon, it's a snake. Because the snake is trying to bite him. And that's why he's wearing like these protection things. So that's a picture that looks like the dragon is which is bad, but it's not a dragon. It's a snake. There's no dragon in.
And there's a goddess which has a lot of a head of the snake with a.
Yeah, that's Medusa. Yeah, Medusa is a different. That's snakes which come from her hair because she was like audacious against the gods, and the gods punished her because she was like talking bad against them, and they punish her to have snakes and her face to be so ugly that when you see her, you become a stone. That's the story of Medusa.
So the snake represents the negative things or
negative.
the bad things.
Negative.
But why is that the hospitals, facilities use the snake?
Because
as a sign?
Good question. Because in Asclepios is the first doctor. Like Hippocrates is officially the first doctor, but before Hippocrates there was his teacher called Asclepios, who was able to do surgery and to do certain things on people in a positive way. I mean, he was trying to help them, and one of the problems that he noticed that when they're in extreme pain, when your human was in extreme pain because they're doing something to their body, because they didn't have anesthetic back then, they would see. When they closed their eye, they would see two snakes inside. It was like an illusion. So that's why the two snakes are. That is a representation of the pain, but that pain brought the therapy. So that's why the Asclepios has a stick that has two snakes, because these two snakes represent the pain that you get to be saved. So that's the reason behind it. So there are snakes because of the pain. So you see these snakes because they're bad things, but they're good in the sense that they lead towards therapy. So that's the thing. I mean, my wife is Korean, by the way, so it's just kind of like, in a way, extreme Chinese. Koreans are extreme Chinese, basically the same thing, but they're just maximum Chinese. They do all the things the Chinese do, and the Chinese don't do, right? They are like fanatic Chinese people in a way. I mean, the point is that she has this mentality of Tao. She always thinks of things have a mind of their own. She gives me this strange concept of that you don't choose a house to live. The house chooses you. Which I was like, what? I choose the house if I want to. She said, no, if the house doesn't want you, you're not going to get it. The house wants to want you. But she's right. At the end, she was right. I think it's true. If you want something, it doesn't happen just because you want. It's selfish. I want you to do this for me. No, the world allows you for you to inhabit it, right? Which is very Taoist. And I was like, this is very interesting kind of concepts of Chinese philosophy, which is very different from Greek. We think that we can change the world.
So I want to know about what's your life in Shanghai, in China, or any other culture shock or anything?
Oh, big time. Big culture, not shock, but more like a lesson, like a epiphany. You find many things that you never thought it was possible, and you always are amazed to see what Chinese people are doing. In fact, I was always saying that you're never going to be bored in China. There's always somebody doing something you never expect. Everybody's doing something. There's always like some guy who's like doing something like, wow, I never thought about that. I'm talking from my point of view. You probably are bored with one another, but it's always like something is going on that I'm like, why is it doing this? And everybody's doing something. There's no lazy people here in China. Everybody has something to do. And they're very proud of doing things. I mean, Sinkola all the time. Sinkola, which we don't have. In Greece, we're like very laid back and we're just like, because the weather is good and everything is nice. So we think it's like the same everywhere. But this is a good thing. That's why you have this amazing progress, because you're always, not only now, I mean, I would think that China had always was the top of the world. It just we didn't know it because we're living in the West, so we never knew that China was always the best. China never had any problem. There was always like rich people. I mean, they're fighting with one another over time, but they were always like at the top of the whole continent, the Asia continent. It was run by, especially this area of the continent, was run by Chinese, right? Even now, I mean, it's nothing, no surprise for you to produce the amount of work and stability and advancements that they have. I mean, the more I look at the Chinese, the more it makes sense to me that this is a natural result of hard work. It's not luck. It's not deception. It's just hard work. You see people working all the time, and they do it in a very patient and consistent and proud way. They enjoy what they're doing, and the result is very amazing. So many of the things that I admire about Chinese culture is, first of all, it's confidence. It's a very confident culture. They don't care about things of the past. I mean, they do, but intellectually, but. I'm looking around all the time. They make new buildings. They make new things. I was always told that the best place to learn about Chinese museums is to go to Japan, because Japan takes the Chinese and they put them into museums and they have them. But the Chinese don't care. They break it. They destroy things, right? And when you ask them why are you destroying it, they say, "Oh, we can make it better." That's a mental state. It's like, I don't care about the old. I'll make it better. I don't have to preserve the old thing. In Greece, we always preserve the old thing. Oh, don't break this. It's old. Hey, why? Make one better. then it's better than the previous one, right? The Chinese are like very bold and like, I'll make the new one. I'll make it better. Even, my Lowe, the Professor Lowe, he always told me like, oh, if we fail, I was always like, what if we fail? We do this. Yeah, look, who cares? We do it better next time. That's a philosophy. It's a way of thinking. And then there's the ethical side of this. I mean, there's also the ethics of Chinese, which is more, I would say, deeply embedded into their culture, from the way that they present ethics. For example, they present people who are important for the society. For example, there was a whole time when they're talking about this scientist who was able to make rice more fertile. Like the rice in China is, has a certain amount of progress, but he was able to cross-pollinate the rice and make it much more fast. And this was a big science for them. And when he died, they were talking about him all the time, right? A scientist. They're talking about a scientist. Or there is in the news, there is a teacher who walks 20 kilometers every day to go to a school. And this is first in the news. Or a electrician who actually stayed all night to fix something so the city don't go black. It's in the news, right? That's important because the paradigm that people have is that this is good things. As opposed to in the West, where the paradigm is an actor who died. Who cares? An actor died yesterday. Like everybody's crying about the actor. Why? Or like some rich guy who did something. Like, who cares? The paradigm is very bad. I mean, they're showing people who are not productive for the society just because they make money that this is a good example. So the kids are like, oh, I want to be like this. I want to be an influencer. Like, oh, look, this person made like $1 billion in like one night. Why is that good? I mean, but all the kids are like, I want to do the same thing too, right? But nobody thinks about like, let me go work all night to protect the school or to protect the city. That is a true ethical society that we don't see it anyway. I don't know. I had a bunch of. Also the fact that the Chinese look into the future, like they have a program for 2035, or 2050, or 2080. I mean, this is a very big thing. You look into the future as something that you can do, which is not that similar in the West. 4 years is the maximum because the next government may change everything. So you don't know. If you have 4 years that are stable, that's actually good. That's not good in the long term as a human. You want to have plans, like in 30 years, what's going to happen to me? I don't want to be in increments of 4 years. I mean, these are like very important parts of the society that I think that you project the right example to the young society. And it's not a celebrity. Celebrity is somebody who does something good for the society, not somebody who makes money. There's a difference between the two, and people don't get it in the West, and I think that is a bad thing. I mean, I'm criticizing the West, rightfully, because I think it is something that it suffers from. We see the consequences now, where people are lazy, they don't care about their society, because you give them the wrong examples. It's all up to us. If we give the right examples, kids are going to they just imitate whatever they're given. They imitate the bad, they'll be bad, and so on and so forth. Different. I mean, then there's the philosophy, the Tao, especially Tao philosophy. It's very interesting to me because it's very similar to Greek philosophy at the same time. The Platonic philosophy is in many ways similar to the Tao philosophy. They are very harmonious. They try to connect things that are not necessarily connectable in a way that is very, very innovative and very nice. You don't have to change things. Things happen for a reason, and that reason could be good. So if you try to change it, you interfere with the nature of things, and that actually produces a turmoil, and you actually pay the price at the end. But if you follow the flow of things, actually things do work out for your advantage. You just don't see it in the first place. I remember myself being in many situations in which I was forced from my culture to act and to change things. And I failed miserably. But if I had followed it, it worked perfectly. And there's a famous example of lockdown in which I was trying to avoid the lockdown. What happened is that I was invited to give a lecture. And 5 o'clock we're supposed to finish, but some students are asking me questions. And so 5 o'clock passes, and then we get a message from the school that there's a lockdown. Nobody gets out. Somebody was found infected, so we close the gates, and nobody can exit out because you're potentially infected. So you're going to stay here until further notice, probably a week. And I'm like, what? I didn't have to be here. I just offered to come. And I was like, I'm trapped now. I was like, oh my God, this is the worst thing can happen. Now I'm trapped in this place for 1 week. What am I going to do? Why did it happen to me? I was like crying and crying. Well, I'll tell you one thing. After a week, it was the best week of my life because Filippo was trapped in there. So we were together all day, which I never could find him, right? So we're talking all night. We even sleep in the same, his office because we had like these mattresses. We're speaking like philosophy all the way till like 3 o'clock in the morning with him. Then we had the people who were bringing us all this junk food to eat, which I never eat because my wife doesn't allow me. So I'm eating all these like chips and things that I never eat. They did haircuts. We playing badminton. It was the best week of my life, which if I had lost it, I would never have done there. So I thought that I was trapped. But really, the world was made me to be there and to be happy, right? I mean, it depends on which way you see it, but it's almost like a Taoist philosophy. Like, why you go against the flow? Why do you think you're so smart? You're maybe not.